Hey there, and welcome to Be the CEO of Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Olga Lacroix, a mom, a former therapist, a certified coach, and a mindfulness teacher. I am here to share valuable tips and insights for all of you mothers and busy women out there. Why? My goal to help you take care of your mental well-being without sacrificing your life of accomplishments. Whether you are juggling family, career, or personal growth, this podcast is your go to resource for becoming the best version of yourself. Let's dive in and start mastering the art of balance together. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 240. Holy moly, we're accumulating episodes. Massive thank you to all of you who have been listening throughout the years and who share these episodes with other people. Honestly, thank you. It's so rewarding to see those stats increase month after month, week after week, and I just want to see them growing even better. So if you want to help me make this podcast even better, reach out to me. Tell me what you want me to talk about. I will gladly research subjects to bring you back some cool subjects that you want to listen to. Before we dive into Ask a Coach, which I sort of got that idea as I was in the gym exercising, I'm like, what if I do every once in a while an episode where I pick questions my clients have asked me in coaching and I just give answers here. It might be super helpful to all of you. Something that I try to do very much so in this podcast is to normalize your feelings. And one way to normalize our experiences is by noticing that other people have the same questions we have or struggles. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this. It's a different kind of episode. I have never done an Ask a Coach episode. And I think you guys are going to like it, but please let me know. Best way to communicate with me is through Instagram, is where I hang out most days. If you want to follow up on my personal life, I often post things there. And you can find me at olgas.way.coaching. Okay. So before we dive in, you know where I've been? If you could see me on camera, you'll see that I have a nice tan. I spent the last 2 weeks in Punta Cana at an all-inclusive resort. It was my in-laws' 60th birthday in February, both of them. And they treated us all to a week at a resort, all-inclusive. My husband and I, who have been there before and love that place, decided to take an extra week and stay there. Because normally every winter we go home to my homeland, Colombia, and spend a couple of weeks at my parents' cottage. But this year we decided not to go. And so we had kind of like some extra time in our hands that we wanted to use down south. You guys, by far, one of the best things Chris and I did to our nervous system is to have 2 weeks of sort of vacation in a row. Although if Chris was here, he'll be saying he worked more hours than he does at home during our vacation, but not the kind of work that he normally does here. So it still felt like a change in routine, which surprisingly to me is so relaxing. It's relaxing to change our routine on purpose from time to time. Obviously, by the beach, in the ocean, with like family and great food, is easy to enter a state of relaxation. But what I noticed that was most relaxing was the mundane little things I didn't have to think about, like what's for supper tonight, buying groceries, doing our bed, making sure my son had everything he needed for the day at school. Just taking a break from that, worth it. Worth it. That's it. So if you have the chance to do, even if it's a staycation, 2 weeks in a row, do it. Because the first week, you're still wired to your everyday go life. The second week, that's when you're like, oh. And if you take a third week, you probably forget all your passwords for work. So helpful. It was so helpful for me. In 8 years that I've had my private practice, I don't think I ever took a full week off, no work at all, that I was not sick or giving birth or something. And so it was a bit of a challenge to do it. Everything in me wants to coach. And I did coach, even if it was 1 hour a week. But even with that, it's the most time off I have taken. I didn't even take my laptop with me, you guys. I disconnected. It was great. All right, coming back to this episode, I am just going to, I've been writing down questions that clients ask me in sessions. And so what I'm going to do here is on the fly, not really planned, pull out some of these questions. Where's my file? And sort of answer them in the podcast as I would with my clients. I wouldn't answer a question. I normally would ask a million other questions. Here it's different. It's like I am giving you an answer. How can I improve my communication skills in my relationships? Listen, I actually have a couple of episodes on just communication alone. I highly suggest you go to the episode in which I talk about how to have difficult conversations with a loved one. Even if the conversation isn't difficult, that's such a great communication episode to listen to. And it is, hold on, episode 219, episode 219, if you want to look it up. And I also have one, which is pretty old. I don't know. I don't think it's in my current status here. How to deal with difficult people also gives you a great perception or perspective on communication, period. Having said that, and referred you to those episodes in which I dive only on this, I do want you to think about the following. Communication skills are accessible to every single one of us. And the single most important, in my opinion, skill to master if we want to be good communicators is intentional listening. Not listening to respond, not listening to win an argument, but listening to understand the person who's talking. A lot of the conflicts we run into when we're communicating with people is that we have zero interest in deeply understanding them, and we have all the interest in them understanding us. So if you're like me and you show up to talk to a friend or to a therapist and you are like, he has all the issues, or my boss has all the issues with communication, it is such a great opportunity to look inwards to see, and how am I communicating that is contributing to this? How am I listening to understand? And in doing so, you're going to have to do a bit of mindfulness. So I've noticed that I become a bad communicator when I enter a defensive mode and I'm no longer listening to understand. I no longer know what the purpose of the conversation is other than to win an argument. I go for the kill. That's one facet of bad communication. A second one is to notice the tone in which you're being spoken to and in which you're speaking to. And notice what happens to your nervous system when the conversation goes in a tone that you simply feel unsafe. And so, for example, I married a French Canadian. And French Canadians, if you're not aware of the culture, are really loud. And while my South American culture is also very loud, I get to understand all the words when somebody's speaking loud in Spanish and notice if it's safe or not. When my husband is talking to his mom, and I at first, when I first met them, I'm like, wow, why are they arguing like this in front of me? And then they would laugh. I'll be so confused. I'm like, was that a joke? And my husband tells me all the time, we just speak with passion. Of course, when you don't understand the language, all you have is the tone. You have a lot of room for assumption. Now, carry that into our communication. My husband still feels very passionately about winning arguments, and he does get loud. And when that tone goes up, my nervous system goes completely turn on into flight or fight response. And two things happen to me. One, I stop listening. I don't want to be in that conversation. I have mentally left the conversation, even though I'm still physically there, which gets very frustrating for the other person too, because it's like, They can tell I'm not listening. And I get blocked. I can't think. I can't think of what to respond. So I end up being frustrated that he seems to be so fast winning those arguments. Meanwhile, I'm in like freezing mode. Didn't fly. I stayed, but I don't have good thoughts. So now that I know this, because I paid attention to what happens to my body, I tense, I blocked, I have better responses that I have planned out when all things are good. So now I know when my nervous system gets off and I'm not listening, I say, I need to pause because I'm no longer listening. I need to go breathe, walk, and have this conversation later. That is good communication because you're communicating, you're ending that conversation because of the tone or how you're feeling or the things that you think you're about to say that are not going to be helpful. You're taking a pause, but you're telling that person that you're communicating with when you're coming back. So active listening, intentional listening, listening to understand. And the second best is to understand what happens to you when you're having conversations. How are you contributing or not to communication, to be open and respectful? But for anything communication wise, I highly suggest you get yourself a therapist or a coach. It just helps you have a lot of self-inspection, self-reflection, and show up differently to your conversations. But do listen to those episodes. Okay. How do I navigate major life transitions, like becoming a mother or adjusting to an empty nest? I love it because I am currently coaching both spectrums, women who are returning to the workforce and women who are thinking about retirement and have an abundant amount of time and resources because their dependents are no longer dependents. And things are shifting in their household, in their marriage. It's very interesting. I love coaching both spectrums. So the question is, how can I navigate major life transitions? The first thing I say to anybody transitioning in life is to have a heck of a lot of patience. Because every transition, as small as it might look like, or as normal as you think it might be, like returning to work from mat leave, takes a toll on all of you. Your mental health, your physical health, your day-to-day activities, your partnership, your work, your routine. Anytime we introduce change to our life in any way or a transition, we're introducing stress. They come hand in hand. But you don't have to introduce suffering at the same time. You already know this is going to be stressful. So being kind and patient avoids the painful part of transition, and it just leaves you with the adjustment part of transition. So having plenty of kindness towards yourself is going to be super important as you transition into whatever is next in life. Understanding that perhaps you have never done this before. You've never had a child before and returned to work. You've never had your children leave the house before. You've never been 3 years away from retirement and suddenly have all these questions in your head. When we haven't done things before, it's normal to freak out. Your brain is going to be facing a heck of a lot of unknowns, and not all of us are built in our brain to tolerate the unknowns. So we're going to cope with that differently. Again, high levels of stress. So as you're transitioning, becoming so self-aware of what the stress is manifesting like in your body, in your mind, and doing your very best to bring harmony into your life so that that stress is mitigated. I so highly suggest you have a companion while you're transitioning, whether that is somebody who already retired and is walking you through their steps or understands what you're going through. Just simple conversations over coffee with a friend who just retired makes a world of a difference. Talking to other moms who just, they might not have a strategy for you, but they'll just give you a nodding of the head and be like, oh, I know, I struggle too. And they'll tell you their own story and you just suddenly don't feel alone. In addition to that, again, get a coach. This is what coaches are excellent for, helping you navigate all the nuances of change and transitions. Bottom line, don't do this alone, okay? Don't do it alone. Do it with a lot of kindness and patience, and normalize every step of the way your experience. Even if none of your friends had anxiety about going back to work and you did, open space for that. Hold yourself in a lot of love and good space for that feeling, because it's here, it's arrived, because it is your unique experience. I personally know that when I went back to, not when I went back to work, when my son left my home care to be at the Montessori, I cried for 2 consecutive weeks. Coming back home and not hearing him was because I went back to work almost immediately after he was born, but I had somebody watch him here at home. So I could hear him cry, like the walls are made out of thin air. I could hear him. So those first 2 weeks, that transition for me was far more difficult than I anticipated, than my sister, than my friends ever experienced. None of them can say that they cried for 2 weeks, and I did. And I didn't make myself feel shame or bad or like something was wrong with me. I had so much compassion for my broken heart, who was really feeling that transition. Like my eyes, if you could see me, they're watering as I remember what that meant for me. I knew this was my only child. I knew this was like, a milestone that is coming and ending. And sometimes with these transitions come grief that we don't anticipate or that nobody tells us about. So I personally gave myself all the space to feel what I was feeling, and making life easier. So for example, I stopped working at home for those 2 weeks. I just found it too quiet and difficult and depressing. So I would work at a Starbucks, or I went to my in-laws or to my parents' house where there were people around while I was working. And I felt that company and not alone. So lots of self-kindness, my friends. Talk to other people who have been through it, and restore your nervous system by allowing yourself to feel. Okay, I'm going to pick another one. How can mindfulness and meditation help me in my daily life? Oh my God. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story with mindfulness. And even this morning, I had such a beautiful, relaxation meditation while I was in the sauna at the gym, that I thought to myself, I don't understand why no more people make of this a mandatory goal in their life. So mindfulness is a lifestyle. It's a way of choosing to go about your life where you're going to care for yourself so much. In awareness, where you're going to hold yourself in awareness without judgment, that allows you to notice, the body's stressed, the mind is anxious. I wonder what I need to do to feel a little better. Where you connect to your most powerful source of force and life, your breath, to ease your nervous system into life, into things going as planned or not as planned. No matter what you're doing, your breath goes with you, and it has the same impact to calm you down, to get you excited, to go fast, to slow down. It's just so wonderful. So how can mindfulness and meditation help me in my daily life in every way? The more you get to know yourself, the more you are in control over your responses and less reactive. Your health will improve significantly if you can spend more time in the present. Your nervous system, your immune system, we have research showing reduction in anxiety and depression and other mental health conditions when people start a daily practice of mindfulness. Better relationships, including the one with yourself. But I said I was going to give you my example. I started my training of mindfulness as I just graduated from the School of Social Work at 23. And I had a very stressful job. I was working with men who were homeless and addicts, and I was an addictions counselor, none of which I knew anything about. I had just done a placement. No, not even. I just got hired even before I finished university. And I had great clinical supervisions, but I didn't know much about addictions. I'm not an addict myself. I never experienced anybody in my family with addictions. And so it was brand new to me. Plus, it was in my second language that I was learning. Plus, it was with a population very difficult to serve, with lots of mental health. So addiction plus mental health plus difficult life circumstances, like being homeless. So very complex. I'm forever grateful that they hired me because I learned so much. And I was coming from just finishing university. I fast forward school like nobody else. I took extra classes so that I could finish my degree in 3 years, and I did. And I graduated with honors, again, while learning English. So I put a lot of effort. That stressed me. I was also a refugee, had just arrived 3 years into the country, which meant my life circumstances were difficult, were uncertain. And I had 3 jobs to put myself through university, which I'm so grateful I did. And I was still navigating the grief of having left my homeland, my school there, my university, my life, my boyfriend, my friends. So I was 22, sorry. And I was very interested in holistic treatments for homeless men with addictions and mental health. And this opportunity came along to get trained in mindfulness by a clinic here in Ottawa. And part of the training was for us to be participants of the program. And of course, I did it because I was an A+ student, right? And type A personality. Of course, I would be the best student. And I would read all the books and I would do all the practices and I'll meditate every day, the exact amount of time that they told us to. And I would go to the class every week. And prior to me taking that training, I had been suffering, and I truly say that with all the meaning, suffering from severe heartburn caused by severe stress, caused by obviously stress, post-traumatic stress from everything that I had lived. And I had intense anxiety. I would sit down to meditate, like I would wake up at 3 a.m. with this heartburn that it was so intense that had me sweating. They thought I had an ulcer, but I didn't. It was just plain heartburn and stress, honestly. The impact of stress in the body is incredible. So I started going to these classes. I started doing the program. I started meditating, reading these things. And I started noticing that the heartburn slowed down and it disappeared in a period of 8 weeks. The anxiety slowed down. And I will still do have episodes of being triggered. It was different. The most terrifying things that I could think of that would traditionally set me off into the flight or fight response, I had such a different perspective. I felt like I was truly observing and not taking things personally, not absorbing the world. I don't know how to explain to you the impact that has had in my life. Because I can't imagine if I had continued to live the life the way I was living, that I would be a healthy 41-year-old like I am today. Pretty healthy physical body and very healthy mind. I get emotional because it saved me. I didn't know I needed saving. But mindfulness saved me. I always joked around saying I did it for my client, but truly life was like, no, friend, this is for you. It's like, these are the moments where I believe in God, in a greater power. When somebody's watching over you and they're like, the only way this girl will learn how to slow down and breathe and heal from all the things that she's been through is if we tell her this is going to help other people. And then she's going to sit down and meditate. And I would have never, ever, ever on my own would have agreed to meditate, because I would have said, I can't stay still. That was the story I told myself about myself. Possibly what I heard my parents say about me. I don't know, or teachers or somebody. So it saved me. It gave me something not book, no therapist, nothing could have given me, which is trust in my own breath, the ability to connect to my body and listen to its wisdom and slow down and connect to my breath and self-heal and self-manage my very active mind. I mean, if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what would. So mindfulness is our ability to come back to the present moment. And there are so many opportunities out there to practice mindfulness. I personally sell a 4-week course called Mindfulness for Every Day. And it's just videos that I've recorded that I think you could enjoy. And I think it's $97. I'll link it to this episode in case you want it. But all of my coaching programs involve mindfulness. I wouldn't do anything in my life. My parenting involved mindfulness. Me as a mom, me as a daughter, me as a wife involves mindfulness. It's been life-giving. Ways in which you can adopt it is by learning. So taking a course in stress reduction. I also teach that. Stay tuned for whenever I offer those classes. I have several apps that I recommend. The first one is Insight Timer, which is totally free. And you find all kinds of meditations of all lengths and all types. I also love with passion, Calm. It's an app that you can also download and you pay for that one. And Headspace being my top favorite one, but also costs you money, but is worth it. Totally. I love him. Now they also have more people in the app, but it is such a great app. So there is that. I'm going to answer one more and then we're going to call it a day. How can I handle better my symptoms of OCD and severe anxiety? Listen, friends, if you have OCD and you are not in treatment for it, don't waste time reading books. Don't waste time listening to episodes on its own. It's helpful, but nothing will be more helpful to you than having an OCD expert. And I mean an expert on OCD. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, has proven to be incredibly helpful for people with OCD. It is not a fast fix. I know my friends with OCD, you're suffering. It is difficult. And I know the OCD on its own might prevent you from reaching out and getting help. But trust me, nothing is more difficult than living with an untreated OCD. Okay. So OCD is a form of anxiety, severe, that also involves compulsive behavior. And so we sometimes have different types of compulsive behavior. Some is not harmful to yourself. Some is either way, any kind of compulsive behavior to mitigate your thoughts of anxiety that are obsessive, end up making the condition worse. So if what you're asking me is how do I relax, then definitely get yourself an app to meditate. Join a yoga studio. Go to meditation classes locally if you can. Be in a group with other people and truly relax your body. Like focus on relaxing your body. Move daily. We know that movement eases the brain activity in a way that nothing else does. So do that. Connect to your breath. Breathe deeply. Write down your thoughts and slow down your compulsion. So you can still do it, but instead of jumping to it right away, give yourself like, okay, I'm going to do it in 5 minutes. Even that begins to give your brain self-discipline that you don't have to do it right away. But my best advice to you is to go and look for professional help. Nothing will help you more than seeing somebody. OCD is not like motivation. It's not like, I don't know, actually, I can't think of things that get better on their own without us doing the work. But sometimes we're like, I'm just going to let time go by and hope for the best. Unless you put effort and dedication into making things best or better, you are going to find yourself in the same scenario, except that OCD gets worse. The fear grows. The compulsion makes it grow. And you will start limiting yourself into a life that only your fears allow you to have. It is so not worth it to live life this way. You can do better. There is a lot of hope. You are going to have to find the right therapist for you that you feel safe with, that you like their energy. Find that, make that your goal. Ask for help to people who might know you and you trust to help you find that therapist, to help you go to those sessions at first if it feels intimidating. but do yourself and everybody who loves you a favor and ask for help. That is my best word of advice for you. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed Ask a Coach episode. It is kind of new. I've never done it, and I am curious to see if you guys enjoy it. And also, I want to hear from all of you with regards to what you want me to talk about in the episode. Coming up, we will have an anxiety clinic starting. It's going to be 4 or 5 week long, where we meet once a week, and it will have some mindfulness, by the way, attached to that. It's still all in my brain, but it is happening because we need to do something about this high level of anxiety we are all living in, and I am passionate to help you reduce that. I'm also going to be teaching a workshop in March 29th with Greg, my peer and coach, on emotional intelligence, and that's gonna be absolutely free. So go browse on my website. We want to find you there. We want you to sign up, and I will see you guys either way very soon. Talk to you guys next week. Bye.